Welcome to another one of my shitty videos. And this one it's gonna be pretty unprofessional because usually whenever I'm talking about a specific topic or talking about a specific YouTuber, I tend to watch the entirety of the video that they make or the video that's the topic on. That way I can be as well informed as I can and I don't make mistakes. But of course, the video in particular is about Dr. Cimmerman, or from Dr. Cimmerman. It's called a Response to LGB SCP, which was a video made by Mr. Mediocre explaining what happened to the SCP wiki. Alright, so I did not watch the entirety of the video. I got about halfway through before I said, yeah, no, this guy is very clearly not understanding what Mr. Mediocre was saying. Right? And I did talk about this subject in my gatekeeping video on why gatekeeping is a good thing, but ultimately I have to really go into detail why Dr. Cimmerman does not understand why people have a problem with the SCP wiki now. Alright? So let's start in the beginning. You're on 4chan. You're on the paranormal board, the X board, right? And you see a post titled SCP-173. It's the first SCP. It's about a statue who snapped your neck when you blink. Alright? This is the first SCP. And little by little it starts gaining traction. And then the SCP Foundation is created, right? More and more SCP articles are created. Eventually, these articles are stored on a wiki called the SCP Wiki as a means to store it, alright? It is undeniable that SCP belongs to 4chan, alright? It objectively does. It is a 4chan creation. It rightfully belongs to 4chan, right? But you see, the main problem people have with when it comes to the modern day SCP Wiki is that it no longer belongs to 4chan. Alright? The main issue people have is that politics have been forced into it. And Dr. Cimmerman has clearly just completely ignored why people have an issue with it. Alright? So, little by little, and I think the biggest thing to blame is the SCP subreddit, because of course Reddit, I fucking hate Reddit. Reddit is a fucking terrible fucking place. It has the worst of the worst leftist scum that want to say diversity and inclusivity are the most important thing without actually understanding what that fucking means. And the only thing they understand that means is less white people, less straight people. That's all that really means nowadays. But ultimately, I think Reddit is to blame, because once Reddit gets a hold of something, they don't stop coming. They just persist until they own it. And that's pretty much what happened to the SCP Wiki. So little by little, Redditors got in positions of powers with the SCP Wiki. They started getting to members of staff, and they started purging people that they didn't like politically, that differed with them politically. Granted, politics was not forced into the SCP Wiki at all until these Redditors started showing up. Politics were not even remotely a part of the SCP Wiki. Alright? Politics were not forced in any of the articles. There was a very clear and well-defined sense of quality that was required for the articles. Alright, you couldn't just throw anything fucking together with the SCP Wiki. You couldn't, alright? It had to be fucking good. It had to be great. There was a standard to it, alright? But once these Redditors came in, they started purging people who differed with them politically, alright? Granted, politics was not in fucking the SCP Wiki. Yes, you can say that the culture of the Wiki was inherently political or inherently right-wing, yes, because it comes from fucking 4chan, but ultimately politics were not... The SCP Wiki wasn't used to push a political agenda like it is now, alright? Especially not by right-wing neo-Nazis, as these people want to fucking say. Alright? And that's my biggest problem when the leftists get involved with things, is that they force their political agendas into everything. They force it into forms of escapism where it just does not fucking belong. Alright? And before I get further into it, I want to say that I genuinely don't care what you do with your body. I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home. If you want to go fuck a man as a man, you go right on ahead. If you want to marry another man as a man, you go right on a fucking head. But do not expect me to just blindly accept it. Don't force it upon me. Don't force me to be okay with it, because ultimately it goes against biology. But I'm not going to get into the debate because, again, I don't really care what you do. I don't care what you do. If you want to transition into being a woman from a man, you go right on ahead. Good for you. More power to you. It's when you start forcing it onto others and onto me is when I have an issue with it. Again, not everybody's like me, and not everybody's going to be, well, you go ahead and do it, pal. Some of them will want to actively keep you from doing it, but I don't care. I genuinely don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home. I don't care if there's a gay character, but whenever they're the only fucking characteristic to the character is the fact that they are gay, is when I have an issue. Alright? So, continuing on. They removed people who disagreed with them politically from the SCP Wiki, and now the SCP Wiki has become a leftist shithole, where political agendas are being forced into pretty much everything, and people who disagree with them politically have just are gone. They're purged. Alright? And what Dr. Cimmerman really tries to imply is that the only reason why people don't like the SCP Wiki anymore, or why they say LGBSCP, the only reason why they say that is because they have a problem with the banner of the SCP Wiki, the logo being changed to the rainbow flag for Pride Month to show gay pride. Alright? That's just the straw that broke the camel's back, alright? Now, Dr. Cimmerman, and this is what every leftist wants to imply, so you're just angry because they're celebrating Pride Month? No. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. That's just that's the cherry on top of the shit sundae. That's just the final fucking blow that made people say, well, fuck this, I'm gonna go make my own version of the SCP again. Alright? People... Dr. Cimmerman tried to imply that gay, LGBTQ or gay people aren't an inherently political thing, but sorry, pal, they inherently are. They are inherently left-leaning, and wherever they go, they force their political agendas into everything, alright? And he wants to say that diversity and inclusivity is a good thing, and I'm not going to say that it isn't, alright? I like the idea of everybody being able to come together and make something. I love the idea of that. But you see, the issue with that is that that's not what happens. Because ultimately, what diversity and inclusivity means to most left-leaning people is less white people, less straight people. Alright? And this is why the comic book industry, this is why the film industry, this is why the gaming industry is collapsing in on itself, because people are realizing, wow, they're just really being mediocre with their shit. When you do diversity hires, whenever you hire people based on race, skin color, when you hire them based on sexuality, that's a diversity hire. When you're not hiring them based on qualification, whether or not they're actually capable of doing the job, like if you're hiring a let's say a Muslim writer who has very little experience over, let's say, an Asian writer who has been in the field for 10 plus years, that's a diversity hire, and you should hire the Asian because the Asian's more qualified. It has really nothing to do with being racist or homophobic or anything like that. Ultimately, diversity hires cause mediocrity. And what happens when it's mediocre? You get less buyers, you get less sales. You get people who realize what the fuck this is, and they don't buy it. They ignore it. They go away. They go find something else. Alright? Excuse me. And ultimately, that's what this is. When you force political agendas into things and claim it's diversity or inclusivity, that's when people like me have a problem. I don't care if your character is gay. If your character is well written, when your character has an actual personality, good for you. If they are gay and have a personality, great. Absolutely fantastic. But whenever their personality is the fact they're gay, is when the problem arises. Alright? And let's move on from the political stuff necessarily and get into why I'm saying all this. Alright? And there's one article in particular that everybody points out, and it's about a transgender alien death satellite that likes Homestuck and identifies as a trans woman's. The article is a very clear self-insert fan fiction, and it's very low quality. And it has no characteristics. The alien death satellite has no characteristics to it besides being a trans woman's and liking Homestuck. You see, that is a shit article. This isn't a joke article, by the way. This is a completely serious article, alright? That's when people have the issue. There is nothing to gain from this article. It is literally an alien death satellite that's a trans woman's that likes Homestuck, and that's its personality. That's the article. Alright? So the issue people have with this isn't because it's a trans woman, or trans woman's, or that it likes Homestuck, or that it's gay, or anything like that. The problem is that's all it is. There's no substance to it. It's low quality, mediocre bullshit. Alright? And that's why people have such a problem with the SCP wiki now, because the standards that the wiki used to have before the fucking Redditors invaded, there used to be standards there, and now they're fucking gone. Now you got these bullshit self-insert fanfiction articles that come out that are inclusive and diverse. And that's the problem, alright? And ultimately, Dr. Cimmerman doesn't understand what the issue is here. He doesn't understand why people have... Excuse me. He doesn't understand why people have an issue to begin with. And this is the issue with left-leaning people. Or at least the radical ones, like Dr. Cimmerman. They plug their ears and they don't listen. These are the same people, whenever you have a debate with them, who just say you're lying, and they won't provide evidence to that. They'll just plug their fucking ears and ignore you because they can't actually argue with you. They don't have anything to back it up. They don't listen to what you say. They won't listen to what you say, and they don't understand. And ultimately, this is the human condition, and this goes both ways on the political spectrum, because it's confirmation bias. You'll ignore information that proves you wrong. Everybody fucking does it. I do it. But ultimately, the issue here isn't the fact that gay people are on the wiki. The issue here is that politics have been forced into something that was not political to begin with. It's the community that created it have been subverted and replaced and purged because they differed with people politically. And to top it all off, these people who subverted us and took our SCP wiki away have the audacity to say, we made it. The issue here isn't gay people. The issue here isn't because I have a problem with gay people, because I don't. The issue here is that you force politics into this, and you have the audacity to say that not only you created it, that, or not Cimmerman in particular, but these Redditors, they have the audacity to say that they created it, that this is theirs, and to say that it's for the purpose of diversity and inclusivity, when very clearly it's not. Diversity is being able to hear every opinion. Including everybody includes everybody. Everybody. Not just white or not white, but black and brown people. That includes white people. That includes white people. That also includes straight people. And this is the issue. The Gay Pride Month banner is just the cherry on top of the shit sundae. Because inherently it is a political subject. And my issue isn't gay people. And I will repeat this till the cows come home. Until the bombs fall. The issue is not gay people. I don't have a problem with them. The issue is the mediocrity that has been allowed on the wiki. The fact that it's become nothing but a piece to push a political agenda. That's the issue here. I genuinely hate to see it end up like this. But ultimately, there's nothing more that I can really say. It's nothing new. This is all information everybody's already pointed out to Cimmerman. This is all shit that's already been said. I doubt Cimmerman will actually see this, nor do I really care if he does. But in the beginning of the video, there's one last point I want to point out. But in the beginning of the video, Dr. Cimmerman had the audacity to say or imply that Mr. Mediocre would have copyright striked his video. I'm just going to say this from personal experience. Right-wing leaning people, whether they be racist or not, whether they be anti-LGBTQ, it doesn't matter where they lie on the spectrum of right-leaning. I don't see them copyright strike people. I only see left-leaning people do it. I've only seen left-leaning people use subversive tactics and political purging like this. But ultimately, that doesn't have anything to do with the SCP. I just wanted to point that out. Well, I think I've ranted long enough. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you hate me or hate my opinion, please tell me in the comments down below. Have a lovely day.